Okay. I actually really hate to do this because I can tell how much great conversation is going on and how excited everybody is to be back together. So I was going to say, how was your lunch? But I can tell how your lunch was based on just how much great conversation I can hear. So it is now time for the main event. We're very excited. And it is my privilege to introduce today's speakers. First, Jaime Faulkner, President of Business Operations for the Chicago Blackhawks. I would normally do like a little kind of song, but I'm not a really good singer, as my kids will tell you. Jaime joined the Blackhawks last December as its first female president. That deserves applause in front of the mic. Her bold leadership, passion for analytics, and customer-focused strategy has positioned her to be one of the brightest leaders in the industry. Prior to the Blackhawks, Jaime founded and was the CEO of E15 Group, an industry-leading consulting strategy and analytics company that serves over 200 clients in all major North American markets and the UK. In 2015, Jaime was named one of Sports Business Journal's Women Game Changers, and in 2019, Sports Business Journal named her one of its Sports Power Players of the Year. In addition to her extraordinary professional career, she is the proud mother of 5 children. Yeah. Let that sink in for a second. Kendall Coyne-Schofield joined the Chicago Blackhawks as its first ever female player development coach last year. In this role, she assists the skills development of current players while also evaluating, assessing, and scouting potential prospects. She is also the community liaison for the Blackhawks, focused on grassroots youth hockey programs and clinics, particularly around young girls. She is also a forward for the United States Women's National Ice Hockey Team, a 6-time world champion at the International Ice Hockey Federation's Women's World Championship, and has twice represented the U.S. in the Olympic Winter Games, earning a gold and silver medal. She was also the first woman to compete in the National Hockey League's All-Star Skills Competition, posting a time of 14.326 seconds in the fastest skater challenge. I wish I had known her when my kids were younger, because my son would not have learned hockey in a bicycle helmet. And finally, our moderator, Dion Miller, ABC 7 Eyewitness News sports anchor and reporter. Dion has covered all of Chicago's sports teams and is a wonderfully familiar face to all of us here in this room and to all sports fans of Chicago. Prior to joining the Chicago scene, she was the host of Fox Sports Ohio, covering a number of the sports teams in Cleveland. So, without further ado, I'm trying to remember where they're going to come from. Please join me in welcoming today's speakers to the stage.
Carrie. Thank you to Carrie and the Chicago Network for having us here today. We're very excited to be here. Clearly, we do not have Adam Burish on the stage.
I'm not Adam Burish.
Yeah, he unfortunately had a family emergency. And I think like any great gal pal, I called Dion at night and was like, I need you to do me a solid. And before I could even explain it, she was like, I'm in, I got you. So we're super excited. It's honestly pretty fitting that us on the stage, having Dion, one of the longest tenured Chicago sports broadcasters, here to sit with us, I think is pretty awesome as well. So thank you for joining.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. I was just telling the girls backstage that I could talk to a camera for hours, but when I see live people, I get nervous, because at home, I don't know if you changed the channel, but I know if I lost the room, you know? So I'm hoping that I can keep your attention today. So honored to be here. I have just been totally filled this morning chatting with some of you and feeling the energy of this network. What a powerful group of women, but how important to be supporting each other in our great city. So thank you so much for letting me be a tiny part of today. Just absolutely thrilled to be here and to be seeing so many examples of what it looks like to support each other, and I love it. So thank you so much. You two obviously fit the bill as well. So why don't we start with you guys? Just give us a little bit of your background, bringing us to today.
Well, I have a pretty crazy background because my career, while I thought when I graduated from college I was going to climb the corporate ladder, ended not being as linear as I thought it would be. I started off at Arthur Andersen and then moved to KPMG, so I was a career consultant, was like gearing to be the youngest partner at KPMG, and then I got pregnant with my first child. Had her and realized I actually wanted to shift and be a stay-at-home mom, so I actually dropped out of the workforce for about 10 years, had 2 more kids, was going a little bit stir-crazy with 3 kids under the age of 4 at home, and I was fortunate enough that my former partner at KPMG called and said, hey, we got some work for you. You can pick the projects, full flexibility. Will you come back and do some work? And I said, well, that'll be great, because at that point I was begging my husband for an Excel spreadsheet he could send me. I was trying to run every group I could find. So I was really lucky and went back to work, but maybe 8 hours a week, 16 hours a week. It was great flexibility. My husband, who was with the Dallas Stars at the time, got a job with the Chicago Cubs, so we came to Chicago, and I moved here with the KPMG office. And so at that time, I worked on a project, was doing work for sports teams, and had the opportunity to work for Levy. So they had hired us to build analytics strategy for them, and through the process just got to know them and loved working with them, and they ended up offering me the job. And actually, Linda Amonte, who I don't know where she is in this room, but she was the senior partner on that project. She does not know this, but when I called my male partner to be like, hey, I got this job offer, he was like, yeah, go do it, but it would have made his life pretty hard. So he's trying to convince me to stay. Linda was our senior partner on the Levy project. I was terrified to call you on the phone because I loved KPMG. And she said, you are qualified, you are going to be amazing, go take the job. Yeah. And it was a tipping point for me. So I left, went into industry, left consulting, went back full-time, so going from 8 to 16 hours a week to going full-time, being hired to build E15, which was a strategy and analytics group for all their sports teams that they serviced. And then I got a call 7 years into that job from a recruiter who said, hey, we're recruiting for the president of team operations for the Blackhawks. Would you be interested? We think you'd be a great candidate. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. And he was like, well, just let me send you the job description. So he sent me the job description. I looked at it over the weekend. I talked to my family about it. My daughter was thrilled. My son, who plays hockey, was super embarrassed if I were to ever get the job. And I called them and I said, sure, I'll have a conversation with Danny Wirtz, their Blackhawks star client. I do a ton of work with them. And after talking with Danny and then going through the interview process, I knew it was the right place for me. Totally different than what I had ever done before. But I was excited, knew I was up to the task, and I've been here now for 6 months, and I absolutely love it.
I remember when they announced that she got the job, and I was like, wait a minute, I think I read it like twice. I'm like, wait, I know who that is. Like, it was just so awesome and such an exciting moment. And to see that franchise make a decision like that and put you in the room with so many powerful men, but knowing you could hold your own in that place is pretty cool, pretty cool. Kendall, you're up, my dear.
Well, my story's not as interesting, I would say. My bosses have looked more like coaches as of right now, but I grew up in Palos Heights, so not too far from here, and I put on my first pair of hockey skates when I was 3 years old, but they weren't my first pair of skates. My first pair of skates were figure skates, because growing up, I had an older brother, and my parents put him in all different sports, and hockey being one of those. But when it came to me playing, they brought me to the rink and they looked at what all the other girls were doing, and that was figure skating. So naturally, they signed their young girl up for figure skating. And I looked around and I was like, I want to do what he does. And I actually lasted a week in figure skating. And it's not because of the sport. It's because my brother wasn't doing it. I absolutely love figure skating. It's one of my favorite Olympic sports to watch. I'm usually front and center, the one usually holding the USA signs and USA chants for our figure skating team at the Olympics. But it just wasn't what my brother was doing. And so my parents said, okay, like a stubborn 3-year-old, got me hockey skates, and obviously I haven't looked back since. But my career was challenging at times because there weren't any other girls playing hockey back then. The Blackhawks weren't what they are today. We would go to the games. I'm sure many of you in this room remember they were about $7 tickets. I would bring my shinny sticks, or mini sticks we call them, shinny sticks, and I would play with my brother, my other brother, my sister, and that was my childhood, just going to Blackhawks games, $7, but there weren't any other girls. And so it didn't hit me that there weren't any other girls until I was told, oh, well, you have to go dress in that locker room, or you have to do this. And then people started telling me I was different. And people started saying, why do you have a ponytail? And that's when I was like, wait, I'm different? I didn't know I was different. I love this game just like they do. My brother never treated me any differently. And so I was a little confused, and that was when times got difficult. But then this magical moment happened in my career, and I was 7 years old. I went to Cami Granato's hockey camp, Downers Grove native, captain of the 1998 Women's Olympic team, won a gold medal, came back and did a hockey camp. And my parents signed me up, and it was a room just like this. I walked in and I was like, wait, girls play hockey. And it was just, no one could ever tell me differently again in my life. And all the kids at school, all the boys that I played with that said, you don't belong here. I got cut from a team because the coach said I'd cause problems in the locker room and didn't want a girl on his team. To my parents, I don't want to deal with that. And so it was this moment that really told me I belong in this sport. And so, Cammie's definitely one of my heroes still to this day. But I left there, I went to school, and I'm like, guys, you know how you call me weird? I met 110 weirdos this summer. You won't believe it. And some of those weirdos are now my teammates on the Olympic team. And so it was just this magnificent moment of girls looking for other girls. And Cammie put together this camp, and we all showed up. And so from there, my career persisted. I started with the U.S. national team when I was 15. I had braces. I was 5'0", 105 pounds. Was really young, needed grow a lot, get a little bit stronger, but it was an incredible opportunity for me to learn from the best this game had to offer at such a young age. From there, I went on to play my college career at Northeastern University. But when I would come back home in between my college season, I was introduced to the Chicago Blackhawks by Annie Kamens, who is in charge of our youth hockey department. And she saw the opportunity to have a female coach in front of our youth. And at times, she would introduce me to the Chicago public schools alongside some of our players like Jonathan Taves. And I remember turning to her and saying, Annie, are you sure? I don't think the kids really want to see me. They obviously want to see our captain. They want to see Jonathan. Like, they're not going to know who I am. And she's like, you're going. And I was young, and I was like, okay, I'll go. And then I realized how important that moment was when all these girls looked around and they said, wait, girls can play hockey too. And this wasn't that long ago. And it speaks to the importance of visibility. As Billie Jean King always says, you need to see it to be it. And I remembered how that moment was powerful for those kids in that school that day, but it was almost more powerful for me to realize how important it is to be out in the community, to be visible, to share my story. And so I went, and that's kind of how my journey with the Blackhawks started. And so I would work the youth hockey camps every summer. I would do a lot of the goal clinics, which stands for Get Out and Learn, and we'd introduce the game of hockey to the Chicago and Chicagoland area. And then about 6 months ago, along with Jamie, my role was increased to player development coach and a youth hockey girls specialist, where now I'm working not only on the grassroots level side of the game, but also with our players and scouting and developing and a lot of our unsigned prospects, working with them. And it's been a magical few months, a lot of work, but I'm also still preparing for the 2022 Winter Olympic Games, which I hope to be able to compete in my third Olympics and hopefully bring back another gold medal.
I'm not even going to pretend to tell my story now. You guys are tremendous. Like, seriously, both of you, incredible role models. And I know Kendall and I started chatting last year, and immediately my kids were drawn to her. And it was just over Zoom. We were doing a Zoom link, and there's my son wanting to talk to her and thought how cool she was. And it's just a powerful example of what you are doing and the importance of what you're doing. So thank you for committing to all of that.
Well, you should share your story. How did you get into
Well,
your role as well?
I'll keep it brief. I'll try to anyway. I got into sports broadcasting. I went to school to be an English teacher and didn't really want to do that, but I love writing. I love journalism. And I was already talking about sports and playing sports. And so when I found out that I could actually talk about sports and it could be my job, I mean, what? So that's when I really pursued it. I ended up getting a job in Billings, Montana, which I couldn't have picked out of a map. But darn it, I was in my car and we went all the way to Montana, and I was a one-woman band there, filming my own stuff and producing and editing and reporting and anchoring and whatever they asked me to do, I did it. Testing infomercial products for on air, I did whatever they asked me to do. And then from there I went to Burlington, Vermont, and then I got a job in San Diego. Then I got fired from a job, which I think happens in all of our industries, and that was ended up being an incredible blessing. I went from there to another ABC7 station in Sarasota, Florida, which is where I grew up and interned. I worked there for a bit, went to Columbus, Ohio, and helped start a network there. Was part of a Big Ten network when I was there, Fox Sports Ohio, covering some of the Cavaliers and just kind of whatever was going on there. And that's where I met my husband, and we had my son, surprise. But we were both kind of, someone needed a full-time job with benefits. We did not have that at the time. And so my husband's like, why don't you go to Chicago? It's the city you've always wanted to call home. And I came and I got an opportunity at Fox 32. I was there for 2.5 years, and there was an opening at ABC7, and I called my agent and I said, I am getting that job. And he said, yeah, lots of people want that, Dion. And I said, no, I'm going to get the job. And very blessed to work there now, almost 7 years. I love it. I could skip into work every day. I work with incredible people. My news director, Jennifer Graves, I'm not sure if she's watching virtually, but she is a part of your network. That matters to me. I'm the first full-time woman they've had in their sports department ever, and that matters to me. And I love my job. I love connecting with our viewers, but I love sports. I mean, I'm a junkie, you guys. I love it, but it's wonderful, and I work at a wonderful place that supports that in our city. So thank you. That's my little story. Jaime, in 2015, you were named, I'm going to read it because there's so many things that you've been named to here, Sports Business Journal's Women Game Changers. Then in 16, you were named to their 40 under 40 list, Sports Power Player of the Year in 2019, and a VenuesNow Industry All-Star in 2020. So what's next? No, I'm just kidding. What have been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on when it comes to sports and the fan experience?
I mean, it probably should have said I'm like the girl with the crazy ideas, because if you ask a lot of the teams that I worked with, that's what they would say. Jaime comes around and says, hey, I have this crazy idea that ended up into some really cool things that we did. You know, I was lucky enough that I love sports, but I also love numbers and data and technology, and I just knew from being a fan myself that the experience could be better. I also knew that if you make all of your decisions with the fan first, the P&L takes care of itself, ticket sales can take care of themselves, but you got to put the fan at the center of it. So it's this incredible opportunity in an industry that typically is, and rightfully so, focused on what's happening on the ice or on the field, to also bring analytics onto the business side. And Levy was the hospitality partner, so the fan actually interacts with the food partner more than anybody else on game day. And I knew that we didn't just serve food. We were a big part of the team, and we could do things differently, and then started to work with the front offices on their other technology strategies. So last couple of years before I came into this role, mainly working on trying to create frictionless venues. I was working on designing the very first frictionless venue, which is an arena that'll open up in a couple of years. And so imagine your experience when you're on the couch and you're hungry. You go to the pantry or the fridge, you grab something, you come sit back down. You know exactly how much time it takes to get there. You don't have to transact or do anything. Imagine if that was your experience from your seat going to the concourse. So we were designing technology that completely revolutionized the experience there. We were trying to put robots using artificial intelligence into concession stands, knowing that people didn't want to stand in front of a fryer for 6 hours and make chicken tenders, which you sell a lot of. And by the way, the night that we did that, the power may or may not have gone out at Dodger Stadium in an extra inning game, which is still in the paper. I Googled that this morning. I'm like, how much news did that get? It got some news. And then we also, at the United Center, and I'm really excited that now I can put all my efforts into one building. I was lucky enough that Amazon was one of my clients before coming over, and we got access to their Just Walk Out technology, which at the time they were building all their Amazon Go's. And they were going to let us pilot their first installation of that technology in the world outside of their own stores at the United Center. We got the store up and running. We were so excited we were going to open it. The day before we were going to open that store at the United Center, Adam Silver canceled the NBA season because of COVID. So I'm hoping that all the technology stuff I do at the United Center will actually work. We won't shut the power down in the middle of the game, and hopefully no seasons get canceled right before we bring fans back. But I think at the end of the day, everything that we do on the business side of the Blackhawks is going to be very focused on making sure that our fans, whether they're engaging with us on non-game day or on game day, have an incredible experience. It's easy for families to come and have a great time. They want to come back, and they want to come with others.
That is incredible. And I'm curious because obviously there aren't a lot of female executives at your level in the NHL, in any sports arena, but in the NHL. When you come in, Jaime, with her crazy ideas, do you feel like you have to have, I guess, more research done, more to present to them because you know you're presenting to a male-dominated room?
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt like I have to be prepared when I go in, and I have always felt I've had to walk into the room and work harder than anybody else in the room, especially in sports. And most of those rooms are filled with males and white males. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that there's so much incredible female talent and people of color talent out there, and we just have to work harder to get them into sports. And even at the Blackhawks, one of the first things I did was start to do one-on-ones with everybody at the Blackhawks. And we have incredibly talented women at the Blackhawks. They either had the title but actually didn't have the authority to do what they needed to do, or they were incredibly talented and didn't have the title. And so even within our own organization, especially as we're adding back to the workforce now as we get prepared for the season, we're going to be really intentional about making sure that we bring diverse people in. So we have the best brains and best personalities sitting around the table. But it's hard because what happens in sports, and the Wirtz is credit to them for saying we want to do something different, typically would have gone and hired a chief revenue officer, a chief commercial officer at another team, who's typically male, to bring them into the team president job. They then would have turned around to their sponsorship team or their ticketing team, typically mostly male, especially in leadership, bumped that person up. And so it's this cycle that continues. So we have to work harder. I feel a responsibility to work even harder to bring women up. And the funny thing is, when I got this job, we were working really hard to get ready to make the announcement. And we didn't tell anybody until the night before. I had to call a couple people just to give them a heads up so they didn't read it in the paper. And my husband, who's an executive with the Cubs, and I made some phone calls and we put him on speaker. And he opened the conversation, all of these conversations he opened up and he said, well, the Chicago Blackhawks have a new team president. Now, everybody we talked to knew that I worked in sports and that he worked in sports. And they all went crazy congratulating Colin for being the new team president of the Blackhawks. And when he was like, well, it's not me, it's actually Jaime, there was pause, silence on the call, and then they went crazy. But that's because people don't just naturally think, oh, it could have been a woman in that position. So we have a lot of work to do within the NHL. We have a lot of work to do across the leagues, but I'm confident with all the other talented women that are in leadership levels that we're going to pull the other women up, and it shouldn't look like this in the future. I think this is not going to be the norm a couple years from now. So.
Kendall, you are legitimately doing some of that work directly on the ice. When you were invited to the NHL All-Star Challenge in 2019, did you understand the magnitude of the moment? Because it was huge. And what was the pressure like in that moment as the only female with all of these men and holding your own?
I think when you hear the words only and first, pressure definitely comes next. Yeah. But to be honest, in that moment, I got on a plane here from Chicago, headed to San Jose, and I was demonstrating the accuracy shooting competition with Renata Fast from Team Canada. We had our set positions, we had our set, goal, like what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. We were demonstrators. We weren't going to be on television. We were there for the fans, which was a great step forward for the women's game to be visible alongside the NHL All-Stars, because we don't have a platform that's visible every year. It's every 4 years at the Olympic Games, but we're working every single day. So we saw this really as an opportunity, myself, my teammate Brianna Decker, and two Hockey Canada players, Renata Fast and Rebecca Johnson, to really promote, advance, and showcase the women's game, even if we were just demonstrators. But when I got there, Patrick Burke, who's a very strong ally of the women's game, said, Kendall, hurry up. I want you to do the fastest skater for the rehearsal. And I had just come in from my flight, stopped in Burbank, and I was like, okay. So the communications director from USA Hockey has my jersey and my socks. His nickname is Fish. I said, Fish, where's my jersey and socks? You know, Patrick wants me out there. And he looks at me, he goes, I only have one sock. I only have one sock. And I was like, Fish, like, what's going on? And he comes back, and it was a sock this big. And I go, Fish, I know I'm short, but, like, this isn't the time. Like, where is my sock? Like, that's not going to fit me. And he goes, I can't find it. So thankfully, Renata Fast from Team Canada, who is, you know, our fiercest competitor and, you know, in this moment, companion, and she goes, hey, I have an extra pair of socks in my bag. You want to wear them? I go, sure thing. So I jump out there. Patrick goes, you warm? I go, if a 5-hour flight with a connection in Burbank is warm, yep, let's do this. And sure enough, I did it, and two longtime NHLers, Shane Doan and Ray Whitney, were on the ice. And after I skated, I did a 14.226, which was actually faster than the next day, but they turned to Patrick, who is in charge of the on-ice skills portion of the competition, and they turn to him and they go, why isn't she doing that tomorrow? And he goes, I've been saying this for years. She can keep up. She can do it. I've brought this idea, and I was told to sit down. But I know I've watched her play. She can do it. So little did I know, right? They have their 8 skaters, you know, scheduled to skate. We, you know, continue with our night. We go back to the hotel, the 4 of us women, we have dinner, whatever. Well, little did I know, Nathan McKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche, who was scheduled to skate, took a puck to the foot, and he was unable to skate because he was in a boot. And so Patrick's wheels started turning. He can't skate, she can. He went right to Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the National Hockey League, with my rehearsal time. And he goes, Kendall can do it. And Commissioner Bettman turns to Patrick and goes, do you believe she can do it? And he goes, absolutely. He goes, if you get the proper approvals, you got mine. The proper approvals were the NHL Players Association and the 7 players, including Nathan, who were scheduled to skate. Because there was prize money involved, I was not a paying member of the Players Association. The winner of the event gets $25,000. Now, granted, my time was a little bit off the winner from the year before, but they still had to get the proper approval. Every single person in the PA that needed to approve that moment did in a heartbeat. The 7 players who had to approve that moment did in a heartbeat, other than the one that was at the Apple store and had a broken phone. So you can imagine Patrick's heart is beating, like this decision is weighing on this one player who's not answering his phone. But everyone approved that moment. And I remember I was in the hotel in San Jose, and my phone rang. It actually rang twice. I'm kind of embarrassed about it now. I didn't answer because I didn't know the number. And it was Patrick, and he texted me, he goes, Kendall, it's Patrick, answer your phone. So I immediately call him, and he goes, you're gonna be the first woman to compete in the NHL All-Star Skills Competition. Are you ready? You need food? You need water? How are you feeling? Are you all right? I'm like, I'm good. And then he's like, all right, let me know if you need anything. And he hangs up, and then I just had to take a deep breath. I actually sat down on the bed and just took in the moment for a second. I called my mom. I told my mom to call my dad, who doesn't typically answer his phone. I called my husband, and I called my best friend. My husband tried to get on an airplane to come to be in there for that moment, but it was too quick. There was only 4 hours from the time I found out to the time I was skating, so there's just no way for any of them to be there. But from that moment on, it was go time. And Colorado Avalanche tweeted at me and asked if I would fulfill Nathan's spot, and I said it would be an honor. I'll get to the rink as fast as I could, pun intended. And then I got to the rink, and it was just mayhem. I mean, media interviews and everything you can imagine. And at one point, I'm like, don't I have 15 minutes to get dressed?
Oh my God.
And they're like, yep, well, let's go. And it was just incredible. And it was awesome. I remember it was warm-ups, and no one had told me if I was able to go on the ice for warm-ups. And so I asked him, am I allowed to go on the ice? And Patrick, all I can hear through the radio, heck yes, get on the ice. And so I get on the ice, and Henrik Lundqvist is in net, and I wasn't shooting a puck. I had nothing to do with pucks the entire evening. But I'm like, oh, I really have to take this opportunity to shoot on Henrik Lundqvist. And I really wanted to keep the puck, but I didn't want to go to that extreme. So I just, I shot the puck, warm-ups were over, and then sure enough, first up, fastest skater competition, first up, Kendall Coyne-Schofield. And I was like, all right, we're going to kick this event off. But in that moment, I got on the ice, I got to the red line, and my heart started racing. And I always say nerves are a good thing because it means you care. It just, you can't let your nerves take you over in that moment. And I was in the starting position, and all of a sudden I had to get up because the crowd was so loud, chanting USA. So I had my USA jersey on, and it was a moment where I just looked around and I wished all of my teammates were there, because I'm the one skating in that moment. But without the product, the talent, the energy, the commitment that my teammates and my counterparts, my competitors, all of the women's hockey community has put on the ice up until that moment, those approvals don't look like the way that they looked. Those aren't 50 yeses to get that moment approved if they don't believe in the women's game. And that moment was earned by the entire women's game. I just happened to be at the right place in the right time. So I took a moment to come out of my crouch just to take in this chanting. And I mean, it was amazing. And then I got back down and I just said, Kendall, move your legs as fast as they can go. They're not very big, but just move them. And to go back to your question, Dion, about the pressure, I think the pressure that I felt in that moment was just, you can't fall, you can't stumble. Or the narrative changes to, I told you so. Girls and women don't belong in the sport of hockey. She can't even skate in a circle. This is supposed to be one of the best skaters in the world, and she can't even skate in a circle. And so that definitely did go through my head of like, I have this opportunity, you can blow it or you can seize it. And I was confident. I was like, just like you've been doing your whole life, just like when I started skating when I was 3 years old in Orland Park, just go do it. It's like riding a bike, enjoy the moment. And that's what I did. I took a deep breath and skated like I've been skating forever. But when I knew the importance of that moment, it wasn't immediately after. There was two of them, and I know we have to get to our next question, but we played in the rivalry series against Team Canada 2 weeks later. And there was a young girl sitting by our bench that said, Kendall, you'll beat all the boys next year. And she was a diehard Team Canada fan. And it wasn't about that. It was about the girls and women's game and what that moment meant for it. And then there was another young girl who was also Canadian, didn't want to play hockey. Her brother played hockey. Her mom reached out to me saying, my 4-year-old wants to be just like you. She wants to be like the fastest skater girl. And so she didn't play hockey, and then she skated her own lap. Her mom sent me that video. A year later, she's now playing hockey. And it shows the significance of that moment because there's so many young girls who don't see someone that looks like them playing this sport. And there's so many girls that don't see women in player development, that don't see women in the roles Jaime has fulfilled. And so it's just such an important reminder about the platform that we do have, and that platform was huge alongside the NHL All-Stars. And just to be able to do what I love and skate like I skate was the icing on top of the cake.
That's awesome. I have a weird feeling hundreds of us will be YouTubing that video later on today. That's a pretty spectacular story. But part of you were talking about just the exposure of women playing hockey. This is the reason that you're so passionate about the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. Can you just talk about the challenges that you've met as a female hockey player?
Well, the one that is in the forefront of my mind every single day is that a young boy and a young girl can't grow up with the same dream of being a professional hockey player and making a living doing it. And that's the reality that we're all still faced with here today. And that's what I'm working every single day. That's why myself, along with 200 of the best players in the world, formed the Players Association in 2019 to fight for a more sustainable and viable professional league that affords women the opportunity to be truly professional. And my professional experience to date has looked like sleeping on an air mattress, Ubering to a pregame meal. My salary was $7,000. And there's a lot more to it, but that's not professional. You are forced to get another job and play hockey on the side. There's a reason that my teammates in 2017 boycotted the Women's World Championships that were on home soil in Plymouth, Michigan. To date, we received $24,000, and we were told that we didn't have to train the way that we were told that we were training. That was not required. And that's why USA Hockey did not have to pay us anything, and that it should have been an honor of ours just to play for the national team. And so we put our foot down 2 weeks before the World Championships, and we boycotted for equitable support. Things like when the men were receiving guest funds, and the staffing list is this long for them and this long for us, and there's a long list of things, but that's why we fight. And all the young girls I work with every day, I can't look at them in the eye knowing that this is their future. And I don't want them to live the same experience that I've lived in a professional hockey setting. And that's why this Players Association is made up of 200 of the strongest women, maybe in addition to everyone in this room, but hockey players that have sacrificed to change the landscape of this game forever, because young boys and young girls need to have the same dream. And that's why we formed the Dream Gap Tour, in which the Chicago Blackhawks have brought us in twice in the last 2 years to support.
And that's what I was going to say, Jamie, that you're one of the few NHL teams that have opened that door. Why is that important to you?
Well, it's the right thing to do, first of all. We have incredible talent. Like, we're lucky enough to be with somebody who's talented, who we can see with our eyes is just as good as any of the boys that are out there, or the men. And also because it does take a group of people to get this done. The players bring a certain set of experience to bear, right? The leagues don't run clubs. They don't know how to form the businesses. They don't know how to set up the tournaments. They don't know how to set up and handle ticket sales or partnerships. But we do. We as clubs know how to do that. We do that very effectively. The Blackhawks do it very well. And so for us, it wasn't about just doing the right thing. It was about helping, and what we're going to continue to do is help to figure out how do we get more games? How do we put a league together? It was really important that when they came in this past year, that they were treated like professionals. You heard Kendall talk about Annie Kamens, and she was like, she ran the show, and she said they are going to be treated just like Patrick Kane is treated. And we did that. We felt that was important.
You did.
Every little detail. We wanted to make sure they felt like it was first class, because that's the right thing to do. And so I think it's going to take us to step up on the business side to help support the women in that initiative. And I think we're going to get it done. It may take us some time, but we'll get it done.
And I will have to jump in, Dion, because it was professional. And to hear my teammates walk into a locker room and be like, there's tape, there's towels, we can get our skates sharpened. These are basic things that we're not used to. And so having the support of the Chicago Blackhawks and women's hockey shows the standard and the expectation that we need to hold ourselves to, that nothing below this is right. But we're so used to accepting the crumbs of whatever we can, happy to have a place to play. Oh, well, I have a full-time job, so I'll just make $7,000 and, call it my part-time job, where it's like, no, this is not what we want for the future. So when we've come in to the United Center, play in that building, come in, see my jersey hanging up with my name tag, and my skates are sharpened, I have tape, and all I have to do is play hockey, it's a dream come true.
That is awesome. One thing that I just hear in your voice, Kendall, is that you're not afraid to push open the doors, but you want to also hold them open for the next generation. And to that end, you've done this all-girls hockey development program, Golden Coins. Talk about how you can implement that now that Chicago's reopening, and how important and valuable that is for what you hope for the next generation.
It's awesome. So we have an all-girls program called the Golden Coins. It's 8 girls aged 6 to 15. We started it 2 years ago in 2019. And to be honest, we weren't sure how many girls we were going to have, so we secured one ice sheet, and we thought we'd have about 25 girls. Well, as usual, if you build it, they'll come. We blinked, and there was 50, and we needed to get a second ice sheet, and it was amazing. Well, then the pandemic happened, so we had to put the program on pause. Well, we restarted it again this year, so we were thinking, okay, maybe we'll get around 50 girls. Well, there's over 100 girls, aged 6 to 15, in this introductory level program for girls hockey. And going around the locker rooms and asking the parents, why did you sign your daughter up for this program? I'm just genuinely curious. And they said there's nothing like it. There's no other program like this for them to play with all girls. And that was the story of my life. And I'm a lot older than these girls. Some of these girls are as young as 6 years old. And so to continue to build these opportunities where all girls can play with other girls keeps them in the sport. We have girls starting hockey, but sometimes we're not retaining them because they get to an age where they don't see other girls, and they're like, this isn't for me. I see a lot more girls in soccer or basketball or other sports. And so we need to continue to build these all-girls programs to show them that there is a place for them. And to be honest, we build it and they sell out, and they're amazing and they're fun. And one of my favorite parts, we have an all-female coaching staff filled with Division I, II, III women who have played at the highest level, and some who would work with our little Blackhawks program on a regular basis. And from the little tykes all the way up, we've secured it all. And so I think it's even more special that these young girls are having women who are coaching them, because I didn't see a female coach for quite some time in my career. And to be honest, the last 3 years of our national team, our staff was all male. And so I've actually challenged our general manager, saying, where are all the women? There's incredible women out there. The Blackhawks found me. I know they're out there. And so I think it's so important that this program is so well-rounded. In 2019, at the end of it, we were able to do a locker room tour. We were able to have a pizza party, in a more non-COVID environment, obviously. But the program has just taken off, and I just think it's so important to continue to give these girls opportunities to be successful in the game.
Do you have
personal? I would add, because I have 2 older boys who played hockey, and super easy for them. You're like ushered from the time you're 5 up until you're either playing Tier 1 or going to high school. Like, the path is so easy if you have a boy. Well, I have a 5-year-old who just turned 6, little girl, who wanted to play hockey. And we were fortunate enough to be in Kendall's program, which she talks about Coach Kendall all the time. So not the hockey bird or Tommy Hawk or a player, but she talks about Coach Kendall all the time. And it's amazing how it's not easy when you have a little girl in hockey. We've got her in soccer and other sports. Again, the path is so easy if you're a female. It's probably taken them a long time to make that an easier path, but it is not easy if you're in hockey. And so for me, being a mom of a little girl who wants to play hockey and she wants to be like Coach Kendall, to be able to help create an environment and support the programs for the Blackhawks and support you to be able to do it. The other thing is that, little girls love clothes. And I'm like, why don't we sell any stuff for girls that play hockey that girls can wear? Like, I don't want to, no offense to our players, I love them, but she's running around with like a Taves jersey or a little Keith jersey. I'm sure they love it, but she wants something pink, or she wants something with Coach Kendall's name on it, which she got as part of the program, right? And so part of, we went to Kendall and said, hey, what if we created a merch line with you that these girls will have something to buy? Mm-hmm. So it's not even about, or just we want to think much bigger than creating the opportunities for them to play, but we want to wrap around it all these things that the boys have in hockey that the girls don't have. And we're really committed to it. We're going to do it. We may not be back up on the stage, but we may be in the luncheon here a couple years from now, and you will be like, hey, I bought that golden coin sweatshirt for my daughter who now plays hockey, and I'm a parent, and it's super easy. So we're really committed because it's the future of our sport. Are these little boys and girls that are growing up and playing. And we have the ability to do the right thing, and we're really committed to doing the right thing.
As someone who loves the game, I love hearing that you had 100 little girls who want to play, and that number is growing. So obviously the audience is there, and to bring them to a Hawks game and have them see, I know my daughter's 6, if she saw something pink in the gift shop, we would have to take it home. And I think that's a powerful way to grow the game and kind of meet them where they're at. So that's super important. What would you, knowing that you guys have kind of come up in these male-dominated worlds, what would you say to the next generation of young girls who may want to follow in your footsteps? What would your message to them be?
Well, I have 2 daughters at home who I preach at every day, at least the older one. I would say, if I could go back and tell my younger self, which is just know your worth, number 1. And I would say find great women and mentors to surround yourself with, and great males in work or in college or whomever your support system is, because you're going to need them as you go through your career or through your life. But I would say have confidence is the number 1 thing. And it's interesting because I was having a conversation with a female executive the other day, and she's thinking about leaving. And it's amazing when you talk to people that's talented, and you probably have these conversations, right? And you're like, don't you know how talented you are and how good you are? Because we see it, but sometimes they need a little extra reminder. So know who you are, and for the times that you forget, surround yourself with groups of women that can remind you how great you really are.
Thank you. I think that's great advice. I think for me, it's do what you love, follow your passion. I entered this sport when I was 3 years old and had no idea where it was going to take me. And it was actually, we were just sitting there, and Jaime said, is it weird for you to work for the Chicago Blackhawks? Like, knowing that this is the team I grew up playing for, rooting for. I remember distinctly in 2007 when Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane came onto the scene, and the United Center is filled 22,000 deep. You couldn't get tickets, and people in high school are asking me, "Wait, you play that sport, that same sport?" I'm like, "Yeah, since I was 3 years old." But I go back to just follow your passion, do what you love, because that's going to take you so far. I love what I do every single day. And similar to Jamie, it's be confident in yourself. Trust me, there's so many rooms I walk into that are all men. And I do get a little nervous, I get a little intimidated. I know I have to work harder, I know I have to be more prepared. And there's also moments where I've been challenged, and others haven't in the same way, where I just have to be confident in myself. I have to believe that I put the work in and that I belong. And that's what I would tell the next generation.
So you have a daughter.
I do.
And a son.
And a son.
What would you say to them?
I think I mentioned briefly that my son saw Kendall and thought she was so cool, and I know the importance of my role in sports, especially for my son who loves baseball, and for him to see me he still thinks that I can get Anthony Rizzo to call our house. I can't quite get past that one. But for him to just see me interacting at this level, and following my passion, but then also being mom. I think it's important for him to see the balance, that I'm doing both, and that I am passionate about both of those roles, and that there's nothing, I've never let anything stop me from pursuing what I feel like I've been called to do. And I want him to see that, but I also want that for my daughter. I find that I put that know your worth on her much more, because I do feel like no matter what she chooses to do at 6, 7 years old, what she plans to do later, she's going to need to remember that more than anything. And that I want to reflect that for her too, and that I know that I'm good at my job, but I also know that I want to help others along the way, and I want to continue to work on my own skills and push myself to be better. And I want that to be what they see from the women that we surround them with. Okay. That was it. Was I have a follow-up? I was like, oh shoot, I should have had a follow-up. But what about you? As well, as your 5 children watching you step into this role. And honestly, I know Jamie because I met her husband, who's also like a heavy hitter in Chicago sports. This is their dining room dinner conversation. I would pay money for a front row seat there. But for you guys to have your children seeing both of you in these roles, how valuable is that, you think?
Well, my daughter loves it because it creates a lot of Instagram photos for her, which she loves. Like I said, my son's embarrassed. I think for the month of March, which was Women's Month, they did this little, I was sold that this was gonna be like a 30-second clip that was gonna play on a Sunday about my role. And apparently it was like multiple clips that played for every Bulls and Blackhawks game during the month of March that had my photo of my kids. My daughter loved it. My son was ready to sue me for having him in there. But I think at the end of the day, what our kids see, similar to you, is how hard we work, how we treat people in that process, how we ask for help, quite honestly. For us, it's funny, Dion had said, have you guys had the point yet where your sports have intersected or the jobs have intersected? And it was funny that I was going to the Blackhawks games even though we weren't having fans. And when the Cubs season started, there was the first night where there was a Cubs game, and there was a Blackhawks game, and we have 2 little people at home. We were like, well, what are we going to do about that? That's an interesting problem we have to fix. So we've adjusted to our new normal, but I think most importantly what we want to demonstrate for our kids are great values and character and integrity. They're going to be completely smart in the things that they love and whatever they want to do, but how you treat people is the most important thing. And I think the one thing that was always important to us, and my husband feels the same way, as being in an industry where he's gone at night, is our kids know 100% they're our number one priority. We don't miss very many things in their life, and so they've also seen us prioritize well family first and then work second. Another thing I love about the Wirtz family and even the Blackhawks is, I was able to bring my kids to some of these games, and they understand I'm going to have to miss for kindergarten field trips. But I think that's really important, and they see that. We have cool jobs, but they don't see it that way. For them, it's normal. The business of sports is normal for them. Most kids are listening for, we used to joke we ruined the magic for them, because our kids are like, Dad, why didn't you sell that spot on the wall at Wrigley Field? Or why are the prices so high? Or how many people do you think scanned in tonight? So we've ruined them anyway for sports. We just want them to be good people when they grow up.
That's hilarious. But I will echo that as well. Like, who they are as people is what matters, and I want them to see that they are my number one priority. Like, I often tell people that was the hardest part about working at home. I'm sure a lot of you women can relate. There was no separation of work and home life. It was like I'm trying to do the sports in the corner and my daughter's flipping on the gymnastics bar next to the camera. And you're like, this is so weird. I mean, it was like, let me quick fold this laundry before I do the sport. I mean, it was like such a hard separation. And because I know when I walk in the house, I have that role as mom, and I want to be able to show them that that's where all of my attention is when I walk in the door. And then when I'm at work, it's all at work. And I feel like that's like, I would want to definitely show them that. But we want to make sure we have some time because we've got some great questions, ladies. No surprise. So I'm going to start with this one because it kind of plays off what we were just discussing. You both have husbands who work in sports. Kendall's husband, Michael, am I allowed to say this? Mm-hmm. Okay. He just signed with Baltimore, so he is trying to get on there for this fall. And then your husband, Colin, obviously works for the Cubs. So how do you guys support each other with the demanding schedules that you both have?
We're each other's biggest fan in life and in sports. And it's a wild ride, but you just have to be each other's biggest supporter. He's been in the league for 7 years, and he's on to his 5th team. And we actually just emptied a pods out yesterday from 2 years ago. And you just kind of roll with it. You support each other. But I think most importantly is you appreciate the time that you have with each other. You appreciate the sacrifice, and you appreciate what it takes to be at that level. Mm-hmm. Whether it's you don't want to talk about your day in regards to sports, or you want to talk about your day. We both are each other's biggest fans in life and in sports, and we both happen to work out together, and we just love the camaraderie that we have around sports. But I think if sports were to end tomorrow for both of us, it wouldn't matter because we have each other.
That's awesome. Now, for you, Jamie, because you took on a role, a bigger one, like how you mentioned a little bit about the dynamic, but and also what it's meant to have that support from Colin during this transition.
I mean, he's been my number one supporter. It's funny, when I first started working in sports, he's been in sports his whole career, and I would go into rooms with teams, and about halfway through a meeting, people would be like, "Are you Colin Faulkner's wife?" So I was always known as Colin Faulkner's wife. And now I love that he's known as Jamie's husband. So that's a lot of fun. But we make it work. We don't like to talk about sports. I mean, the last couple of years I was at E15. I was doing a ton of work for the Dodgers and the Nationals, like competitive teams. And we just sort of made the decision too, when we walk at home and we're there with our kids or with each other, we're enjoying sports, so maybe watching stuff on TV, but we're not really talking about it. But there are sometimes where, I want to pick his brain on a couple things, and I'm like, ugh, we're going to be competing for that jersey patch. Do I really want to ask him that question or not? And so I'm super competitive. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, everything we do has to be better than what the Cubs do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. What are you guys most looking forward to now that our city is reopening?
Well, I can't wait to just be outside. I'm excited to see people, have our kids there. We went to a game at Wrigley Field, which was fun. I can't wait to have fans back for Blackhawks games. I think it's going to be great. I'm just happy that we're having like a sense of normalcy. That's been very, very nice.
I think I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to meet some of our prospects in person. Yeah. When I started the job in October, of course, it was in the middle of the pandemic, so I really have only met them through Zoom and FaceTime and been working with them all year round, whether I'm breaking down their film, working with my partner, Eric Condra, who's in Minnesota. So with the women's national team, I've traveled to Minnesota and been able to meet him there coincidentally, but really looking forward to being able to see the players in person. And then also too, I was very lucky to be able to, be here close to Rockford so I could go see those players in person. But I think once we start being able to travel to our prospects, that'll be really enjoyable.
I'm looking forward to, no one asked me, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to get back in the locker rooms and being able to bring our viewers and fans closer to the players that they love. And that's the one thing that I miss so much about my job, was to be that like liaison and make you at home feel like you were there. And that's something that I hope we get to do again. So if I have any say with the Hawks, I would love that. Okay. But Jamie, this next one is kind of for you. Assuming the fans are back in full force next season, how do the Blackhawks see that fan experience changing in the future?
Well, it's going to change for the better. We're going to bring mobile technology in. We're going to try to make the experience. I don't control any. Once you're in your seats and you're watching what's on the ice, that's somebody else running that. That's Kendall. But when you get out of your seat, we want to make sure it's the best experience possible. We're also working on some fun content stuff that's going to be coming up, where we also want people to get to know our players. We have an incredible roster of young players, which rarely happens. I think we had, how many rookies, or how many players did we have that were in their first or second year this past season? 13, 14?
I think it was 13.
And most teams carry 1 or 2 rookies, right? So we have all these incredible kids who want to get engaged. They want to interact with fans as well. And so we're going to be working on some fun content to actually get to know some of these hockey players besides what you see on the ice. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun stuff in store.
I can't wait. Okay, this feels like a good one to end on. Cubs or Sox, who will win the World Series?
How about the Blackhawks will win the cup? How about that?
I just hope they do end up playing each other in the World Series. It's just better for me when they're both winning. I'm just going to say it. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for your attention today. Thank you, Jaime and Kendall, for your honesty and your openness. What a fabulous, fabulous time. And here comes lovely Maria. Here she is.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So much inspiration, so much energy. Ladies, thank you so much. Can we just please give them an incredible round of applause for joining us today? I have to tell you, I was sitting in my chair and so inspired that I pulled out a pen and started writing things down. So, lessons I learned today: challenge, ask why, be an upstander. When you're in positions of influence, make sure you make it happen. Know your worth, do what you love, have confidence. I really can't imagine summing up that incredible hour of discussion any better than that. So thank you again. It is truly an absolute honor to have you all here with us today. We all sincerely hope that you had an enjoyable lunch, you enjoyed seeing each other, being with each other in person. Continue conversation, take the time to kind of say, meet some people, because you may not have had an opportunity to meet with them before, in honor of our incredible country and all this energy about the Olympics and Team USA. There are beautiful flowers on the tables. By the way, they are the Chicago Network colors. Whoever's birthday is closest to July 4th, please feel free to take them home. So thank you again. It was such a pleasure. We hope to see you next year for Wiffle 2022.